Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Yellow again, everybody. That's a shout out to Lance Russell, legend of studio wrestling on Saturday mornings in Memphis. Rob Browne here with you on this Tuesday edition. Took off a few days for Memorial Day. We were back here at the Cherry Farm. Went up on the Spring River, caught a bunch of rainbow troutses in Rockbridge, Missouri. Man, if you are ever looking for someplace cool to go, you need to go to that place. I mean, it is just a 3-mile stream, but just loaded with rainbow trout. You might catch a brown here and there. Spring River, as usual, was a freak show of human pornography. It was insane up there. You see things that you don't think that you'll see anywhere other than maybe the Mid-South Fair Music Fest or the Spring River. That's it. We have a great show in store for you today. Bill Gunter is going to check in with us from over in Columbia, South Carolina, talking South Carolina Gamecocks. Second segment, Jason Caldwell checks in inside the Auburn Tigers. Really looking forward to hearing him talk about NCAA baseball regionals. Everybody, 8 of the 16 regionals will be hosted by SEC baseball teams. Hey, you don't like it? Do something about it. Invest more money in your program, get better players, get better coaches, and win more games. 2 more SEC teams, Texas A&M and Tennessee, are number 2 seeds in their respective regionals. And like I heard it so many times on TV last night, you don't want to see Tennessee and Texas A&M showing up in your region. They are really, really good. Tennessee last year was the number 1 seed overall. Our number 2, Mitch Davis checks in, the MitchDavisShow.com. Mitch is going to be talking with us about the NCAA baseball regionals, all that excitement going on, and covering it like it only Mitch does. Mitch is a baseball junkie down in Tupelo, Mississippi. And in the 4th segment, Rodney Orr, Tider Insider. Okay, Rodney Orr, Tider Insider will check in with us from Tuscaloosa, as he always does. And, of course, Tuesday nights, he and Gary Harris do their show on WVUA TV 23 at 6:30 p.m. Central, talking about the Crimson Tide. And I think they're getting pretty fired up in Tuscaloosa because they're being told, hey, move over. There's a new sheriff in town. It's Kirby Smart in Georgia. We'll see about that. But, hey, follow us on Twitter at Sidelines_live. 25 shows a month, 50 hours plus of content. We are doing it every day. We took a few days off for Memorial Day, and that was to honor those who gave the ultimate sacrifice for this country. No doubt we live in the greatest country in the history of the world. If you have any doubt about that, listen to another show. Bill Gunter is on with us this morning. I was texting Bill, a friend of mine, David Baker, his daughter, they're members of our hunting club over here in Parkin, Arkansas, right outside of Memphis. Caroline will be a sophomore at South Carolina. And I've been saying, I need to find somebody that covers South Carolina. I heard you on the show with our friends Dan Matthews and Chuck Oliver last week, Southern Sports Today. And Dan will be on with us tomorrow. Chuck and I went to Auburn together. He was a freshman when I was a senior. Of course, I was redshirted twice. I was a 6th-year senior, but they're 2 of the nicest people. And you talk about a professional. When Dan is a guest on your show, you will get critiqued. I love it with him. But I heard you on there, and I said, you know what? I'm going to get a hold of this guy. And anytime, if I hear somebody really good, and if they're on a show like Chuck Oliver with Dan Matthews, I'm like, hey, we got to cover South Carolina. But how you doing this morning?
We're doing good. Yeah, back in the rhythm now after a 3-day weekend. And, of course, the show that I do here is 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. So you take a 3-day break. There's no easing back into the week when you're waking up at 5 a.m. to be live at 6 a.m. It's full go. And obviously around here, big weekend is South Carolina baseball. I heard you talking about our regionals. Yep. As I was hopping on, South Carolina has been a very up and down team this year, baseball wise, being ranked as high as number 3, and just the wheels absolutely coming off there. So there was a lot of debate. There has been a lot of debate about whether they should host, whether they would host. And of course, we learned that this weekend. And so was a great weekend. It was awful weather here. It was like Christmas and Memorial Day. I actually had the fireplace on, but it's supposed to warm up. We get into baseball, talk some football recruiting this morning, because now you got You got recruiting season upon us. Official visits can take place starting this weekend. So we're kicking into high gear now with the summer. And we did the math this morning. 95 days, I believe, if you count today, 95 days until the start of college football.
Well, yeah, I get that countdown. I love it every morning. The recruiting really never stops. If you're a coach nowadays, you've probably got PTSD, basically. I mean, it never stops. You can't turn your ringer off, or if you do, you better be looking at your phone constantly. South Carolina, Shane Beamer, when he came to Carolina, he'd been there before. He has a vision, and he doesn't just dream, because that's a waste of time. He is really getting after it in terms of recruiting and building a culture there. No negative thoughts allowed. Is that how you see him?
Yeah, I was fortunate. I worked, just a little background, worked for ESPN and 24/7 Sports doing
Yeah.
football recruiting and going to camps and doing evaluations. And I got to know a lot of great coaches. And obviously, being here in Columbia during that era, I knew Shane, got to know Shane real well, and got to know the coaches. And you're right, he's always been an ultra positive guy. Not a lot of negative thoughts. There were times that we would talk, and he would think he could get a recruit years ago that I didn't think they'd get. He'd be persistent, and maybe they'd land and maybe they wouldn't. But yeah, he's a very positive guy. And you've seen that the last 2 years where it looked like South Carolina was ready to nosedive. His first season, they go out to Texas A&M. Texas A&M had more points, I think, than South Carolina had yards in that game at one point. It was awful, and it looked like the season was going to crash for South Carolina. It didn't look like they would make a bowl, and they came back and played Florida a week later, and they thumped Florida, and then lost to Missouri, but then beat Auburn, and ended up, lo and behold, going to a bowl game. And so you're right. Then last year it was Florida down there. They get smashed, and all of a sudden people up here were very upset. But Shane Beamer, much to the chagrin of a lot of people, came out and said, "No, we're fine. This is still the same team." And lo and behold, they finished the season with those wins over Tennessee and Clemson. And it's interesting to hear a coach say something and then you see the results and back it up. You see a lot of coaches say stuff, maybe things don't happen. Last night, Jimmy Butler was predicting a victory, and you saw him back it up. Well, Shane Beamer's talked about that positive culture, and we've actually seen it backed up a couple times.
I remember being in Roanoke when Frank Beamer was introduced as the Virginia Tech head football coach. My brother-in-law played football at Virginia Tech, was a tight end up there from Rich Creek. They live in Roanoke and still do. And he got out there and he said, "This is what we're going to do." And he put a vision out there. He put the plan to work. And Shane grew up around that. And it's obvious. The wins over Tennessee, 63-38. Nobody saw that one coming. I mean, Custer had better odds at Little Bighorn. And then you look at a week later, you go break a streak of over 40 wins for your friends up there in the upstate in Clemson. And they hadn't lost at home since 2016. I know that's the first time South Carolina has ever won back-to-back games over top 10 opponents, but it's only the 7th time in college football history that a team that was unranked beat top 10 programs back-to-back. That's a hell of an accomplishment.
There was a lot of fanfare. In December of 2021, when Spencer Rattler announced he was going to come to South Carolina and be the starting quarterback. And last year was difficult. The majority of the year, the first 10 games were difficult. There was a lot of people on our talk show about mid-October, late October, who thought that Luke Doty, the backup, a former 4-star top 100 recruit, there's a lot of people who thought Luke Doty should be the guy that should get the start, that this Spencer Rattler experiment was not working out. And of course, the offensive coordinator, Marcus Satterfield, had drawn, I would say, poor. I was going to say mixed, but that's probably being overly nice. I don't know if he'll watch this show, but it was poor reviews to say the least. There was a lot of people that really wanted him fired after year one, and Shane kind of stuck with him. There was people that were especially after the Missouri game and after the Florida game, were ready to run him out of town. So everything was going about as poorly as you could expect. And you're right, to see the offensive turnaround. South Carolina's defense is still trying to get better, but the drastic turnaround from the pathetic performance again against Florida to putting up 63 on Tennessee and Spencer Rattler throwing 6 touchdowns, we're still there's a new offensive coordinator in town now. But we're still going to have to see if this is real or not. We're going to have to see if South Carolina if Shane Beamer has turned a corner there with his offensive staff.
Well, you look at your staff, and Shane Beamer had a relationship with Spencer Rattler at Oklahoma. And everybody remembers when he was at Oklahoma being pulled out of the Red River Shootout 2 years in a row. And like, well, this guy's no way. He's a cancer that you don't want to bring him. Shane Beamer knew him. He brought him in there. I haven't heard the first problem about Spencer Rattler, and he is one hell of a quarterback. I think he came in as one of the top players in the country. Have you had a chance to talk with him one-on-one ever about kind of what he went through? Of course, who doesn't go through growing pains when you're, good God, 19, 20, 21 years old? I'm older than that, and I'm still going through them.
Yeah, trust me. Yeah. A lot of it centers back. And it's interesting because obviously where you're at, y'all are familiar. You're a little bit too familiar now with Ja Morant. And I've known Ja Morant for a long time. Ja would come, not to go too far down a rabbit hole in this.
I want to hear it. Yeah. Hey, listen, we're in Memphis, so we're all over the place because of the web and everything. But he's from a little town over there, and I mean, I'm a huge Grizzlies fan. I don't know why he's doing what he's doing, but keep going.
Well, so I knew Ja when he was younger. I've got a background in AAU basketball and helped a lot of people. That was really how I started this whole thing. I was additionally back when I was much younger, was coaching in an Adidas AAU basketball program. I knew Sonny Vicario real well, which, by the way, that's a whole other. Matt Damon as Sonny Vicario is the worst. That is the only one that I've ever seen that might be worse is Tom Cruise playing the guy in American Made. I forget his name, that flew the planes for the government, the drugs. Like, like, hey, who plays you in a movie? Who plays you? You joking say like, yeah, I'd want Matt Damon or people that look nothing like me that are incredibly handsome. Matt Damon playing Sonny Vicario is probably up there just as bad as Tom Cruise playing the guy in American Made. But as I said, I'd get way off on a tangent. But I knew Ja. He actually played. I don't know if people know this. He played AAU basketball. A younger AAU team was Zion Williamson in Columbia. And so anyway, the point being is I kind of know the background there. I think there is a relation with younger kids, not knowing what goes on social media or how their actions are taken, especially to go back to where I was going with this, with Spencer Rattler. Because as you kind of mentioned, Spencer Rattler really didn't do anything at Oklahoma that gave him this bad reputation. What it was from was that show QB1, where he's yelling at a wide receiver and he looks, for lack of a better term, like a pompous ass, like a entitled brat. He looked like that, but there was really even nothing at Oklahoma that suggested that was his true demeanor. And I have talked to him about that, and he regrets it. It went out. It's a bad look. It's a really bad look. But the bottom line is, I think what you're seeing with Ja Morant, who I don't think understands the reach social media has. I think, like you said, small town. Oh, this is just going to my buddies. They'll understand what I'm doing. I think Spencer Rattler, the way he acted on that show, from what I've kind of gathered was, I didn't understand how big that would be. What I was doing, how, you might shoot the show out in LA or Phoenix, but people on the East Coast are still seeing it. People in New York are still seeing it. And that's how they form an opinion of you, because if you even go back to Oklahoma, he was never a locker room cancer. He was never a guy that handled the benching poorly and threw temper tantrums. He decided it was in his best interest to leave. Of course, they at that time had a great quarterback in Caleb Williams, and we all know kind of how all that played out. But certainly, I think that it's a reputation that was unjust on him because of one television show. He's not been a problem here. He's embraced Columbia. He's embraced this team. He's understood he had to earn his role as a leader, and he's done a really good job.
Well, and that's why it's so important to get people the boots on the ground. I mean, we Buddy Martin, GatorbaitMedia.com, and the Buddy Martin show's on with us every week. And Buddy made a comment about 3 weeks ago. He said, the local media so often nowadays is boxed out by the coaches in the SEC. It's the paranoia. You can say Nick Saban started it or whatever, but I mean, coaches now are more paranoid than the Russians or the Poles. But bottom line, you go back and you look at it, and Buddy Martin said, an expert today is someone who's from out of town who has an opinion. The local guys who were there every day that know them and see them traditionally, they're pushed out. We got to stop that. The First Amendment is alive and well. We protect it on this show. We talk about sports, and we're a sports radio show and podcast. That's what we do. That's who we are. Glad to hear that because you have been there. Good God, all these Memphis people that are listening are going, wow, we never knew that about John Morant. Nobody did. And the only person, I've got a friend whose son plays on the lacrosse team at Duke, and when he was a freshman, Zion was a freshman. He said, super nice guy. Just got to keep him healthy. But both of them, by the way, from South Carolina, and they got some pretty good athletes. A little over 5 million people in that state. There's a lot of industry. There's a lot of things going on there. I got a son living in Charlotte, and what is that, 2 hours from Columbia? So
it depends. It depends all on how fast you drive. If you drive slow, it's 2 hours. Of course, honestly, the way Charlotte is, go to the other side of Charlotte now probably is 2 hours. If you just want to go into the north, but again, all dependent if you believe you're in NASCAR or not. Yeah,
exactly. And we're going to come back. I want to talk more about Columbia, what's going on at South Carolina, because Shane Beamer, everybody, you look at what Joe Morrison, the first 10-win team they ever had was, I think, 1984. They went 10-2. And then Steve Spurrier came along. Of course, you had Lou Holtz after that. But the end of the Brad Scott era was 1-10, Lou Holtz 0-11. You've had some incredible coaches there. And I've always looked at that program, and I'm like, you got over 5 million people in that state. There's a lot of money. It's y'all and Clemson. That's really who it is. But we're going to talk about it with Bill Gunter, more on this Tuesday edition of Sidelines right after this quick commercial break.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Bill Gunter, let people know how they can follow you and keep up with you before I don't want to let you get away before you do that because you do a daily sports radio show, but I'm sure you're putting a lot out on your podcast and your web and your blogs.
I'm actually older, cut back. 2 kids, club soccer and AAU basketball, and one's a cheerleader. So it's a lot of time being dad, but obviously I probably should have gone in and done that during the break. You can follow me at Will, WIL, Gunter, GUNTER. And I do the sports on the flagship for the University of South Carolina, 107.5 The Game. So we're the home of the Gamecocks, home of the game. And so we 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern time each and every morning. And obviously right now some baseball talk, and it was a fun weekend. I'm learning one of my producers is big into NASCAR, so she's dragged me into that for the last 6 years. And we talk, obviously it was a big NASCAR racing weekend. And given that my background is in recruiting, we talk a lot of recruiting as we did the first official visit weekend coming up this weekend for South Carolina. So a lot of content like that, but I'm a Heat fan as well. So I was very happy with last night. And I have no connections to Miami or the Heat. I just grew up liking them from the Ronnie Cycli days. So you can follow me on Twitter at Will, WIL, Gunter, GUNTER.
All right, and bottom line is you got Clemson in the same state. You beat Clemson last year. Recruiting, again, it never stops. There's pretty good talent in the state of South Carolina. If you look on the chart, I think they'll put out 60 a year Division I players, maybe 65. Is it growing but of those players, how much competition? I mean, I know that Georgia will come there, and North Carolina and all, and obviously Clemson and South Carolina.
Well, to go back to kind of your point, Tennessee made a fantastic during their heyday in the '90s, getting defensive linemen like Albert Haynesworth out of Hartsville, and they were able to come in. Eric Young was a great offensive lineman that went up there during the Spurrier era. I think that's right, or maybe at the end of the Holtz era. But the bottom line is, Tennessee's always been a problem. Georgia, obviously, Richard Seymour is probably from about 20 minutes down the road where I'm at, and the university's right behind me. So, Richard Seymour was right here. Georgia's pulled out Channing Tindall, a linebacker that was very good for them over time. Alabama came in and got Corey Miller a few years ago that ended up being a big part of their team. So you've had players. It's a battle. South Carolina, that's what a lot of people talk about, is South Carolina under Steve Spurrier with Shane Beamer as the recruiting coordinator started winning and keeping these kids home. Jadeveon Clowney didn't go to Alabama. Marcus Lattimore did not go to Auburn. Cliff Matthews, who was big on that defensive line, did not go to Georgia. Alshon Jeffrey did not go to Tennessee or Southern Cal. Stephon Gilmore did not leave the step. And these are all names. Obviously, Marcus Lattimore got injured. These are all names that went on to have, have had. Melvin Ingram Melvin's from North Carolina, right on the border, right there where you can go into in Rockingham. But, that's another guy that you can go right along that border and get. But these are all guys that South Carolina was able to get and stay home. DJ Swearinger is another one that was a lower level recruit, 3-star recruit, but was committed to Philip Fulmer in Tennessee. Devin Taylor was a kid, another defensive end that's played a long time with the Lions. Chose South Carolina over Virginia Tech. So Steve Spurrier, Shane Beamer, they were really able to start landing what are the difference makers in this state. And that's what you've got to get, because then you've got other good players. I'll go back, talk about the 90s. Wally Richardson and Bobby Ingram, both from South Carolina, go to Penn State. Joe Hamilton was a really good quarterback that went to Georgia Tech. The list can kind of go on and on and on about kids who have left this state that maybe if South Carolina just kept them home, who knows what happens with the program.
Yeah, and I think about big defensive lineman Sean Ellis out of Gaffney, South Carolina, on the '98 Tennessee National Championship team. I will never forget when Auburn was down about to take the ball in for a touchdown at the 3-yard line. He ran a deflected pass 97 yards back the other way for a touchdown. But Gaffney's, of course, where the Big Peach is, right there along Interstate 85 when you're going up there. But I'm with you. And I look at South Carolina. It's a lot like Alabama. NASCAR is huge in that state. And personal note, when NASCAR is strong, America is a greater country. That's just the way it is. It's just something about it. And leave NASCAR alone. Don't try to change it. We drove by. My wife and I were on the way over to Atlanta for our oldest daughter back in late April for the baptism of the granddaughter. Went through, and on Saturday, April 22nd, the next day was Talladega 500, and there were people everywhere. I mean, I've never seen more porta-johns in my life. But, you go there, and that is, they have, 2 races a year there? But there's stuff going on there year round. And you can look where NASCAR is strong, college football is strong. Where you've got paper mills in the town, you've got great high school football. Working class people produce great football players.
Yeah, it's a small. The thing about high school football is it's maybe still the purest form of football that's out there. There's no NIL just yet. We are having an uptick. You talk about a whole other conversation that's happening here that we have to have on our show is we have some charter schools who are playing 2A, and they're actually starting to do some recruiting, and it's becoming a whole mess around here that people are very upset about. But you go out into the rural areas, and South Carolina, for the better part of, I'd say the majority of the state is rural areas, and people have that affiliation. Hey, where are we going on Friday night? We're going to see the local high school team play, where the local high school quarterback is still, the greatest thing since sliced bread. Yeah. And that's how South Carolina is. And there's been some really good players. You go back again, there is a correlation more so for South Carolina than Clemson, in terms of landing homegrown talent and having better teams. You go back to the Boulware brothers, who again are from right down the road, who all went to Florida State.
Yep.
I've named. You can sit here and name some great players that have come out. Carlos Dunlap was a guy that South Carolina missed on there late, that went down to Florida and was MVP of the national championship game, I believe, in the Ohio State game down there. And Dunlap was a guy that South Carolina thought they had. So there is a correlation, and a lot of it's because, man, in this state, you come up, if you're a big time player, you can pretty much it's similar to varsity blues still in a lot of places. And how those guys are treated.
Marshall Riley and Victor Riley, his brother, played at Auburn in '97 out of Swansea, South Carolina. Was a first-round draft pick offensive lineman. There is a lot of talent, and then of course Georgia, with the population over there, South Carolina also goes there and gets players, and they're not going anywhere. I mean, and I think bottom line, I look at the big picture. Recruiting, again, it never stops. When you've got a guy like Shane Beamer, and that's really his specialty is recruiting, you're not going to do anything. I think Carolina will continue to get better. The issue is beating Georgia. You got Tennessee last year, and Florida is trying to rebuild. What is the goal of every South Carolina fan? I mean, when you talk to them every day, is it to, hey, we got to win the East, we got to win the national championship? What are they like?
Well, we're seeing all that come to a conclusion. It's going to be the new era of college football. We were talking about it this morning, obviously, because of the spring meetings getting underway in Destin. And all right, what is the schedule going to look like? Are they going to do a 1-year transition 8-game schedule? And they just obviously we're going to see them go away from divisions is the expectation. So, I think the goal for South Carolina is now it's not going to be to win the SEC anymore. This is going to sound stupid, but this is where we're going. You want to qualify for the college football playoff.
Yeah.
And being in this conference, the question is going to be, can you get in at 9-3? If you lose to Georgia, if you lose to, whatever. Right now they play Texas A&M, and I know Texas A&M isn't all that good, but you get the point. If all right, we lose to Georgia, we lose to Texas A&M, maybe we lose to Clemson. Is that enough to still get us in the college football playoff? Do you want to play that extra SEC championship game?
Yeah.
Are we still going to have that? We're going to see a lot of change. So yes, and if you'd have asked this question, if we'd have done this 5 years ago, the thing would be, we got to catch Georgia. How do we catch Georgia? How do we get up? Well, now, okay, it's going to be, how do we get into that top 12? Who is that top 12? Is it 6 SEC teams and 2 Big East or Big Ten teams and AC? What do we got? And so that's going to be the goal. So it's going to change. And then to your point about, was it beat Georgia? Well, at least the stuff we're hearing, it doesn't look like Georgia's going to be a permanent opponent for South Carolina. A lot of the rumors have been that it's going to be Florida, it's going to be Kentucky, and it's going to be Tennessee, that Georgia needs to keep that rivalry game with Florida. They need to keep that rivalry game with Auburn. And, then what other game do they want to keep? Do you throw South Carolina in there? So it sounds like South Carolina and Georgia, and we've had these discussions. And a matter of fact, there's a lot of people who say, hey, if we only play Georgia twice every 4 years, that's fine. We'll take it. We'll live with that.
Yeah. Well, the meetings that start in Destin today, the 1-7 or the 3-6. And the question is ESPN, Disney, and they're laying off a lot of people right now. Are they willing to spend more money for, if you've got an 8-game schedule or a 9-game schedule, then what do they give up? What do they gain? Whatever. So it's going to be fun. Listen, thank you so much for your time. I know we got to get you back on here again, Bill. Great stuff about not just South Carolina, but the whole picture over there. And I've been trying to find someone to cover the Gamecocks in Carolina. You're part of the Braves country footprint too. Are you a Braves fan?
Yeah, I don't live and die with them. I watched some of them this weekend because my girlfriend's actually a bigger Braves fan. I've got a backstory where I lived in New York a little bit and have been to more Yankees games than anything else. But I've been to Truist Park once last year when Spencer Strider had the record-setting performance for a rookie and struck out 16. I happened to be at that game. but I like the Braves. I'm okay with the Braves. I've been to plenty of Braves games. I've had my pictures taken when I was little with Ron Gant and David Justice and Tom Glavine, so Steve Avery. So I'm a Braves fan.
You fit the profile of our listeners and our guests. Bill, look, thanks so much. Let's do it again next week. Love hearing about the Gamecocks.
Anytime. Don't hesitate. You got my phone number. I hope y'all have a great week. Great rest of the day.
You do too. We're looking forward to it. That is Bill Gunter, ESPN 107.5 over in Columbia, South Carolina. Covers the Gamecocks, and now we're going to head down to Auburn or wherever Jason Caldwell is. Jason, I was reading the website yesterday, Inside the Auburn Tigers, nonstop content. Man, you were so far ahead, you and Philip Marshall, the whole crew on the baseball regionals. But it's a big deal for Auburn. I mean, and I know you look like you've probably been working 24 hours a day, which I always ask you, you really don't get off. I mean, I admire it, what you do. But, folks, if you're looking for an incredible place to follow the Auburn Tigers content, it is nonstop. You'll be reading and stories are updating. Your screen is constantly moving. But it's a big deal, back-to-back regional, first time in school history, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's a big deal. You're right. To be able to, when Butch Thompson came back to Auburn as the head coach, one of the things he wanted to get the program to was to be able to host. Auburn hosted in 99, hosted in 2003 and 2010, and that was it. It had been since 2010 since Auburn had hosted a regional, and they didn't win in either 2003 or 2010. So they had not won a regional on their home playing surface since 1999.
Yeah.
And so now you look at back-to-back regionals. They've been the Para College World Series, been the Super Regional. I think, what is it? 3 out of the last 4 baseball seasons for them. Yeah. And so that's it. It's consistency. It's giving yourself an opportunity year after year. And you look at it, Auburn's hosted 6 times in history. LSU's close to 30. That's what you're chasing, is that consistency, because the more often than not you host at home, you're going to have a much better chance to win. Auburn's been pretty fortunate to win some on the road and to do some of those things, but every chance you get to be at home is a big deal. And so, for this team to fight back from where they were and to be able to host is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, that 5-10 start. And remember, Butch Thompson's on the show with us most every week. He'll be on again tomorrow. He said, Coach, of your top 3 pitchers, including Joseph Gonzalez, Tommy Sheehan, how many total innings have they pitched? He didn't even finish the question. He said 5 1/3. And by the time the season was over, Gonzalez had bailed. He's going to go try. I mean, the shoulder wasn't going to get any better. But it's amazing what Coach Thompson and Coach Schoenrock, they call him Coach Rock, who's been at Memphis for 18 years, coached Butch Thompson at Birmingham Southern. That's been a really strong partnership, hasn't it?
It has. And, that was basically – it's been a total rebuild. You mentioned you lose, 5 pitchers that got drafted last year. That was 2 of your 3 guys in the starting rotation and your top 2 relievers. So you know that you're replacing 4 out of your top 5 pitchers. Well, yeah. Jose Gonzalez is back, and he pitches 5 innings on day 1 and has not pitched since then. Had his shoulder scoped not too long ago, and so you won't have him anymore. Tommy Sheehan's a guy that you thought probably would have a chance to pitch in on a weekend. I think 2 2/3 innings for him this year. He ended up having surgery. And so, you look and you go, that's probably 6 of your top 7 guys from a year ago. How do you replace those guys? Well, you bring in a grad transfer in Tommy Vale, and he was a guy that they had projected to be in the Carson Skipper role, which was going to be a setup man, get lefties out, do some of those things. Well, he's turned into an everyday starter. You look at Christian Herberholtz is a guy that they brought in from junior college, and they thought might be a spot reliever, do some things, and turned into a starter as well. And then, Chase Alsop's a guy that is just going to develop, but it's been the whole staff. It's been about development. Young guys, junior college transfers, just developing and finding their roles throughout the year. And it was a struggle early, but they've come on and pitched pretty well lately. And obviously it's going to be needed when you get to the postseason. You got to have pitching. You got to have depth of pitching. That's how you succeed. And, that's how this Auburn team is going to succeed anyway. We saw last year, Ole Miss did it with basically 2.5 pitchers. They won a national championship riding two guys in starting roles, they were able to win. They scored a lot of runs, and they were able to make that pay off. And so for Auburn, offensively, can you get that kind of performance that you've gotten from this team's solid offense and mix in some of that pitching? If you do that, then this team will have a chance to play for a while.
Yeah, we're about to take a break. When we come back, I've got a bunch of questions coming in for you from listeners. But I look back to when Auburn went on the road to South Carolina that week building up to it. Butch Thompson said, yeah, they're number 2 in the country. We're playing up there. We got LSU the next week, number 1 in the country. When we get to Auburn, he goes, I just see this as an opportunity for us to get better. It's an opportunity. I'm not worried about how high they're ranked. That's the great mindset that I love. No negative thoughts allowed. We'll be right back. Jason Caldwell inside the Auburn Tigers. All right, Jason, got a question from a listener. Butch Thompson is a great coach. What is Auburn doing to ensure that he is there for a long time? Is it NIL? Is it traditional fundraising? But I know that they have spent, I believe, $32 million recently. They're going to put into the baseball program. What is Auburn going to do to keep Coach Thompson there? He seems like he loves it.
All of the above. That's it. You put resources into the program, and that's what Auburn has done. I think more so lately than they have probably ever. Maybe since building Plainsman Park in the mid '90s. Yeah. But there are going to be renovations done. Having John Cohen as your athletic director it's a big deal, I think, for Butch Thompson. This guy he worked with, this guy that understands and wants baseball to be important and wants it to be a one of the faces of an athletic department, and it can be. It is at Mississippi State, it is at LSU, it is at Arkansas, South Carolina. It can be that way at Auburn too, and I think you do that from a facility standpoint. You do it from an NIL standpoint, and you look at the fan support has come. Auburn's had more fan support, sold more tickets, done things than they've ever done in program history, and so I think that's what you do, and seeing that it's possible. That's the thing. You look at, is it possible at Auburn? Yeah, it's possible at Auburn. That's what you want to do. You want to win a national championship, and that's a possibility at Auburn, and they've shown that by their success under Butch Thompson.
And you get 35 players, 11.7 scholarships. Is NIL, I guess, moving toward being able to fill that gap to where you've got a full amount of scholarship money for all 35 players?
Yeah, it's getting closer to that. I don't know that it's there yet, but what you're able to do is fill the gap for folks that need it and help out some. And so you're able to do that. And the other part of it is it's just the way it works now. You got to have NIL to attract top transfers. Knowing, hey, I got a possibility to get some NIL money if I go to school X or whatever it is. We've seen it at work in this league this year, where you look at LSU with Paul Skeens and Tommy White and some of the guys they've added to that roster, how much of an impact it's made for them. You look at, Florida with Herschel Waldrop, a kid from UCLA, and how much of an impact it's made. It's making an impact. And excuse me, that I misspoke there. I must think about the LSU pitcher, but they've made some inroads in NIL, and for Auburn, that's the next step. Can you make the NIL impact to not only help in recruiting, because what it does is it helps guys that maybe are draft guys that go, look, instead of taking third or fourth round, I'll go to school and it's not going to cost me, $25,000 a year. Maybe I'll get some of that back and it won't cost my parents as much. That's the thing that you have to deal with now, is that, in college baseball, there's not a full ride. I mean, teams can't afford to do that. You can't afford to give one full scholarship away. You might get some people that have 50, 60%, which would be a lot. But even then, if that's a kid from out of state, that's a hefty chunk of change that you got to put down every year just to play as a scholarship athlete. And so NIL does help to offset that some.
And here's a comment, really. Curtis Lowe, Palatka, Florida. Every year is pretty much a partial rebuild for Auburn basketball and baseball. Bruce and Butch are writing a manual about how to do it. But wouldn't you say everybody is in that same boat? And by the way, I never thought I would see a guy enter the portal from one of the service academies, but that's where Paul Skane came from, the Air Force Academy. And there's another guy on that Air Force team, one of my pledge brothers, Sigma Nu at Auburn, Jay Thomason's son, they call him Jay Bomason, hit over 20 home runs this year on the baseball team at Air Force. You lived there in Auburn. Did Auburn recruit him? Did he just, I mean, look, it's a hell of an honor to go to the Air Force Academy, but he is a hell of a player.
Yeah, the problem a lot of times is when guys develop and how they develop. And now, I mean, college baseball recruiting, I mean, people think about basketball and guys are signed a couple of years early. In baseball, they just changed the rules now to where you can't contact guys. But I mean, Auburn already has 5 or 6 commitments in the 2026 class. That's the way this thing works. You got to get in as early as possible, build those things. Like Irish and Zach Crotchfield, these guys were committed for a couple of years. That's how it works. And so, you're gonna miss on guys that maybe develop a little later, guys that get a little bit bigger, a little stronger, late in their senior years or after high school. Just the way it works. And so what you do is you hope you can get a shot at those guys a couple of years down the road if they decide they want to try to make a run and try to come back and play in the SEC. It's a huge draw, I think, for kids. And, I think that's one of the things you're hoping that NIL can help a little bit with.
Well, interestingly, 48% of the major league players on opening day rosters played at 4-year schools. I think the trend is, you just develop better versus going out on the, I've known, and you probably have known people too, that played 7 or 8 years in the minors and just said enough. They never got to what they call the big show. Mm-hmm. Now you've got guys that are playing at least 3 years, and the training, the academics, the conditioning, the diet and everything like that versus the road trips and eating crappy food and staying in Motel 6s and whatever, it wears on you. But for example, who's up there every Wednesday in the medical building looking at the Auburn baseball players? Dr. Andrews and his crew. I mean, you can't get any better than that. That Coach Thompson said when he talks to the families in the recruiting process, that's a big part of it. And Dr. Andrews will help out. And I mean, my God, think about the Auburn players you just mentioned, Joseph Gonzalez, Tommy Sheehan transferred in from Notre Dame. They did not have that.
Yeah, no, it's a big deal. You're right. It used to be that you had to go, minor league baseball and you signed out of high school. That's how you made it to the big leagues. And now you look and it's turned. The trend now is to draft college guys because they're more prepared, they're more mature, physically, emotionally, everything. It's a hard life to go ride a bus and play minor league baseball. That's not easy. Live with a host family during the year or share roommates for a couple of years. I mean, it's not an easy thing. And so it's made it an easier decision for some guys to go, look, I could go make some money, but if you think about what's life-changing money now as opposed to what it was 20 years ago, is $1 million life-changing money nowadays when you think about from now to you're 75 years old?
Yeah.
Probably not. It's not. And so you got to think about how much it is. That's the decision that people have to make. But college baseball has made it an option now where it probably wasn't an option 25, 30 years ago for a lot of guys.
Interesting comment here from Shoney, Valdosta, Georgia. 48 less minor league teams are affiliated with Major League Baseball now. That might be part of it. But, Jason, by the way, I heard John Cohen doing color commentary when Auburn was playing Missouri. You've done it as well. Andy Burcham He's got Brad Law there, but he's got a hell of a lot of talent around him. If you had to pick, I always ask this to Bill Cameron because I've known Bill since '79. He's a Yankees. He grew up pulling for the Yankees, living in Flomaton, Alabama. If you had to pick one sport, if there's only one sport you could cover, would it be baseball?
Yeah, it'd be baseball for me.
It would.
It's a different thing. I love covering football, and football Saturday is unlike anything else. But baseball, because there's more games, there's more access. You get to know the players a lot more, and I know the football guys from a recruiting standpoint, but baseball guys, yesterday I get done with eating lunch and go back out and watch them practice for a little bit, and you kind of hang out and you get to know those guys. But baseball is also a sport where a 3-game series. So if you go on a road trip or you're at a regional, it's not where football, you go in, you have the game, you work for 8 hours that game day, and then you turn around and come home. You get to enjoy, experience places. I've been to just about everywhere in this league, covering Auburn baseball, and you go to Baton Rouge and you go to Nashville and Gainesville and Athens and Knoxville, Ole Miss, Mississippi State. You get to experience what it's like, and to me that's the biggest part of it is that it's more than just the game itself. It's everything surrounding. That's why I like baseball.
Yeah, and I'm with you. This popularity, the rise in baseball. You look, there's NIL there, we know, but it's not all you hear about with a lot of the football and basketball. Everybody's got their hands out, and you feel like if you're a coach, you're Monty Hall on Let's Make a Deal. This school's offering me this or that. We just got about 3 or 4 minutes left with you before you got to go. I know you've got a lot going on. Anything, and by the way, again, you're constantly out on the road recruiting. Meeting the recruits for football, basketball, baseball, whatever. In football, you never budged from your stance that the previous staff, the Potato Boys, he didn't like recruiting, and that's just not going to work. Now it's so different. It's almost scary if you're an Auburn fan reading this going, wow, Auburn's back in the game, but they really are, aren't they?
They are. And this coming weekend will start a big month. The month of June is one of the more important months you'll have. I think December is the most important month in college football now because it's the early signing period and it's that early transfer portal window. December is the biggest month of the year. June may be the second biggest month now because you have camp visits and you have official visits. So Auburn will have 3 or 4 official visitors this weekend. They'll have, a dozen or more in the next couple of weeks here in the month of June. Camps going on. This is the groundwork month. You lay the groundwork for 2025 and 26 in these months ahead. And that's where they had to catch up. And it's almost impossible to catch up. Now they're going to start out and be at the forefront of those classes where they've been playing catch up the previous years. It's a must. And so this will be a big month for them.
Janai Broome comes back in basketball. I think he needs another year. Don't you think it's going to help him?
I think it's going to help him. But yeah, you look, and I don't watch very much NBA basketball. Matter of fact, maybe 2 minutes a year. That's about it. But I know one thing. They spread the floor, and you got to be able to defend from away from the basket if you're going to play a big position, even in the NBA. You got to be able to defend the perimeter. And that's, to me, is the biggest thing for him. So it's going to be perimeter game. If you want to make it to the NBA, you got to be able to knock down open shots, and you got to be able to defend the perimeter. Those are 2 things that Broome needs to work on. But having him back is a huge deal for Auburn. That's massive when you talk about the talent they've added. Now you add in leading scorer, leading rebounder, you bring him back to the fold. And to me, it automatically puts Auburn back into that mix of teams that you watch in the Southeastern Conference. Yeah.
Jason, look, great stuff as always. Let people know how they can follow you, keep up with you and everything. And we'll do it again next week, hopefully talking about the Tigers advancing to the Super Regional. And one last question. If Auburn were to win their regional, are they automatically going to host a Super? What has to happen real quick? I know there's a lot of parts.
Auburn would have to win and Clemson would have to lose. If Clemson wins their regional, they automatically would host a super regional because they're a national seed. That's who Auburn's matched up against. But if Clemson were to lose and Auburn were to win, then Auburn would host a super regional the next week.
Okay, there you go. All right, but let people know again, and we'll let you go.
Yeah, check us out at auburnundercover.com, autigers.com as well. I'll get you there. Also follow me on Twitter at ITATJason.
All right, great stuff as always. Have a great day, Jason. Thanks so
Bob.
much.
Appreciate it.
You bet. All right, we're going to be joined here just a second by Mitch Davis of the MitchDavisShow.com. And interesting. So Auburn wins the Super Regional, then Clemson's got to lose. There's always working parts. I remember last year Arkansas had to go to Oklahoma State to play in the Super Regional. So look, you got 64 teams. It's like the NCAA basketball tournament. The top 8 teams are the national seeds, and Clemson is on a 16-game winning streak. Hell of a job that they've done over there. Clemson softball, they didn't even start the program till 2020. Look at what they're doing. Talk about commitment to winning, and they're committed to winning in everything they do. That is Clemson. I mean, great stuff in that first segment with Bill Gunter over at ESPN 107.5 in Columbia, South Carolina, home of the Gamecocks. And we're going to be bringing him on more and more. We've got Richmond Weaver covers Clemson and the SoCon for us. Tommy Kane, NC State, ACC over in Atlanta. We'll keep growing and expanding. And most of us, it's either Cardinals country or Braves country. That's the footprint that we are in. And our fan base is locked in. They love baseball. And I got to believe Jason is dead right. Okay. Baseball is just, there's not a better sport to attend in person than a baseball game. I love college football, but when you go to a baseball game, you can sit out there, eat some hot dogs, drink cold beer. You just can't beat it. If it's a 3 or 4 game homestand, that's even more fun. And that's why I think baseball is making a comeback. And Mitch, I was listening last night on ESPN talking about baseball. The pitcher, Peterson, who pitched for Stanford, who's on SEC Network a lot, said 48% of the players on Major League Baseball rosters on opening day had played at 4-year colleges. And then it's also mentioned by Shoney down in Valdosta that there are 48 less minor league teams affiliated with Major League Baseball. But you love – Mitch, I'm asking you this like I asked Jason. If you had to pick one sport to cover, and only one sport, would it be bowling, curling, or baseball?
Oh, Lord. Rob, that's a difficult question because really, truthfully, I've been asked this a million times, and I've got a million different answers. Each sport is different. It's hard to pick a favorite, but back against the wall, college baseball is special. I've been out to Omaha, been to Hoover 3 times. Unfortunately, didn't get to go this year, but planning on going back next year with a group of guys and tailgating and having a good time and really just enjoying the Southeastern Conference. Rob, but college baseball is special because it doesn't have the media presence that college football has and basketball has. So you're not fighting for, positions. You're not fighting for stories. You're not fighting for, if you cover college baseball and you're around college baseball, you're around these programs, you get to know the coaches, you get to know the players, and I'm going to be involved, and we can talk about this. I'm going to be involved this summer with a league called the Cotton States Baseball League here in New Albany, Mississippi. One of the greatest development leagues in college baseball. A lot of JUCO guys, a lot of NAIA guys, some D1 guys looking to get to that next level and looking to get to like a Mississippi State or like a Memphis or an Ole Miss. We even had Braylon Skinner play there last year.
Mitch, hold those thoughts. I want to get the Cotton States Development League. That is awesome. I like to say we cover sports. We cover sports in the South like kudzu and cotton. Now we got the Cotton States Development League. We're going to be right back after this quick break.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Rob Browne back with Mitch Davis of the MitchDavisShow.com. Mitch, let's talk more about the Cotton States League. That I am not familiar with that. Getting a lot of people saying, what, who, where? I love it.
Rob, I do have to correct you because the founders will text me momentarily if I don't get the correct name out there. It's the Cotton States Baseball League. It's been around. I think the earliest days. I'd have to go back in my notes and look, but I think the earliest days date back all the way to around the early 1900s. Not exactly sure on the date, but they've had a lot of great. It used to be a what is now single A minor league baseball. It used to be kind of like a development league, and has since evolved into a college baseball summer league here in New Albany, Mississippi, the fertile grounds of, right on the banks of the Delta, right on the banks of Northeast Mississippi, the rolling hills, an hour away from Starkville. Play at B&A Park. We're going to have a lot of great teams this summer, a lot of great players. Got a player from Freed Hardeman. I think it was Freed Hardeman, who threw a no-hitter this season. So a lot of guys who are playing NAIA ball, a lot of guys that are playing JUCO ball, that want to get to the Mississippi States, the Ole Misses of the world. And they come through the Cotton States Baseball League. And, Don Kessinger has endorsed our league. And John Cohen is a good friend of the league. And, there's a lot of great baseball talent here in the SIP and a lot of great baseball talent in the Southeast. And, sometimes it gets overlooked, with the Cape Cod League and, some of those other summer leagues. Those players don't really have somewhere to come play. The Cotton States Baseball League offers those players some place to come and be the diamond in the rough and really get noticed. And like I said, we've had Braylon Skinner as of recent, who won a national championship at Mississippi State and now, hit the transfer portal and went to Memphis State. We've had him come through the ranks. So a lot of great alumni, a lot of great base. It's just 7-inning games. It's kind of a structured environment a little bit, but they do have, I think we're going to have 5 teams this year. I could be wrong. I think it's 5. 5 teams this year and all represented, across the Southeast. And, we've had players all the way from, I think it was Haiti or somewhere of that nature in the past. So it's a great league for the summer. It happens on the weekends on June and July. The game times are in the afternoon after church and after various activities. So the kids can go have a job, and it's a really great environment. I'm excited. I'm going to be running the media relations this summer. So I'm going to be kind of running as an SID and getting practice in as an SID. So it should be a lot of fun this summer.
I think it's great. I mean, Sunday afternoon baseball after church, families sitting around doing things. I mean, that is what America grew up with. I mean, and people listening to this show, I mean, I think it is a great idea. Mitch, Mr. Krabs just texted me and said, I'd get the world's smallest violin out here for all those whiners who are bitching and moaning about the Southeastern Conference having 8 teams hosting the regionals. Well, you know what? To all those people, put your lips over your heads and swallow. If you don't like it, go get better players, better coaches, invest in your programs. It doesn't hurt when you got Tennessee and A&M as 2 seeds and whatever regional they're in. I know where they are. I mean, Tennessee is going to play at Clemson, and Texas A&M. Listen, you don't want them coming to town. Week in, week out, SEC baseball is the toughest in the country. What are we going to do, though, about this outdated, broken down thing called the RPI? I say we need to change the initials to RIP.
Rob, I'm not a big fan of the RPI, and obviously I will say it did help the Kentucky Wildcats this baseball season. They got a a national hosting seat, which is great for Lexington, great for the baseball community there in Kentucky. But the RPI is outdated. Basketball no longer uses it. They use the quad system, which I think is a great system. I think if you play enough quad one opponents in basketball, I think you should be rewarded with a high NFC. We've seen that time and time again. But Rob, you mentioned the SEC getting 8 hosting regionals. Here's the thing. The SEC is far better than anybody else in the country when it comes to baseball. And here's why. Because we have such an advantage down here when it comes to year-round baseball, because the kids can play year-round baseball down here. They can go down to the coast of Alabama, the coast of Florida, play some development, play some, some situational stuff, and then they go into the spring and they're ready for the spring. Then in the summer, they can come join us at the Cotton States Baseball League, or they can go across the South and play in other leagues. I mean, baseball down here is a year-round sport, whereas up north and out west, you got the weather, you got to practice inside. That puts teams like that at a disadvantage. And truth be told, not a lot of kids want to go play baseball at other places other than the Southeast. I mean, that's why Ole Miss and Mississippi State and Florida and all them, they go out to California, they go up to Boston, they go up all across the country and get recruits, because kids want to come down to the South, because not only is it the SEC, but it's whatever that school is, whether it be Auburn or Alabama or Tennessee, whatever, that school has an identity, not only in baseball, but across the table. I mean, when you think of Tennessee athletics, what do you think of, Rob?
Football. You think of basketball, baseball. You think of, really all sports, because Tennessee historically has been good in everything. And women's basketball, softball.
You think of one of the greatest fan bases in the country. You think of you think of Auburn. You think of the Auburn men. You think of the Toomer's Corner. You think of what does it mean to be an Auburn man. You think of Kentucky. You think of the Rolling Hills, the Bluegrass, playing in the SEC, having a chance to be something great in baseball. This is all what the SEC does in recruiting. I mean, when you play in the beautiful SEC and, you got all the added bonuses, I'm not gonna get unpolitically correct here, Rob, but you got some bonuses that young men like to look at and like to hang around.
We got the best looking women in the world. Free speech is alive and well on this show. We're not scared of anybody.
I mean, there's no doubt, and that's the same thing with the women's sports as well. I mean, they look at the guys down here and they're like, hey, I mean, the co-eds in the SEC are the best. It is what it is. I mean, there's no way around it. And, people look at the environments. I mean, you've got 175,000 people that made it through the gates of the Hoover Met over the last week, and it was the biggest crowd in the Southeastern Conference baseball history. I know Rob will talk about that. There was a lot of talk about moving the SEC tournament out of Hoover and a lot of BS. I would almost say a lot of something else, but a lot of BS. And I'm actually publishing an article literally as soon as we get off here, Rob, about keeping the tournament in Hoover, because it is tradition and it's uniquely the Southeastern Conference. And, I was watching the Big 12 tournament, and that tournament had no life whatsoever there at Global Life Stadium there in Arlington, Texas.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Hoover, it's designed for it. You've got huge parking areas for the RVs, the tailgating. It is what they do is they take like the Atlanta Braves do with Braves Country. They're married in with the football, the Southeastern sports fan, and Hoover is such a natural choice. Nothing can compare to what they do in Hoover. I'm not from Birmingham. I'm not a member of the Chamber of Commerce, and I'm not sponsored by the Hoover Met. In the interest of full disclosure, I don't own any shares in the Hoover Met, but I'm with you. And the question's always brought up, Mitch, and you're a baseball junkie. Does Hoover matter? Why even go? And, no coach is going to tell you they want their team to go there and lose, because they don't. So it's a win-win deal. If you are already, you're going to be in a regional and you lose in the first game, okay, especially if you're hosting, look at it and say, we're going to get more rest. Secondly, you can say that you want to go there and be in that winning mindset, but you look at Texas A&M, 5 games or whatever in 6 days, they ran out of pitchers. They ran out of arms. Everybody's in the same boat. You have a few days off from Sunday until Thursday when the regionals start back. But my approach is Hoover is an event that celebrates baseball. It's great for the growth of the game, the future. and look at all the kids that were there, like we were when we were little guys, catching foul balls and staying out there all night. I used to have to take my kids to Redbirds games or whatever and hunt them down, but never once when I said, hey, we got tickets to the Redbirds game tonight, do y'all want to go? Did they ever turn me down? Yeah. That's what's great about Hoover.
And, you know, Rob, the thing about it is I've been there 3 times, and next year is going to be the 4th. And unfortunately, this year I got married, and, you know, vacation time kind of ran out, couldn't go down there. But, you know, Hoover is special. I mean, I tailgated last year. I saw they did a special on them on some news station out of Baton Rouge or something. LSU fans that have been tailgating at the Hoover Met for 25 years, they had been – it's the same group, and one of the guys' dads – the kid actually plays for LSU Boloso. And, you know, his dad's been out there for 25 years, and they dreamed of their son playing for LSU. They tailgate with an old man that's an Alabama fan from the Gulf Coast. And, you know, that is what Southeastern Conference is to me. I mean, you know, it is to me and my father, to me and my family, the Southeastern Conference really just means more. I mean, I married into Mississippi State family, and now that I've going to games at the Duty Noble and, you know, at Davis Wade Stadium at the Hump. Yep. I've got lifelong friends that I've met at a tailgate at both places, Duty Noble and at Davis Wade Stadium, that I now consider to be some of my best friends. I had 2 guys that I met through SEC baseball. I think it was one of the tournaments here in the last 2018, 2017, whenever Ole Miss won the tournament and they beat LSU in the championship. Met 2 guys, Jake Nichols, who covers Tennessee during that week, and also Jared Redding, who covers the Ole Miss Rebels for Inside the Rebels. I met those 2 guys. Those 2 guys were in my wedding last month in April. And that's what the Southeastern Conference means to me. And, you know, to take that tournament out of Hoover is not only taking away from what the Southeastern Conference is, but it's taking away another tradition that what it seems like the woke mob is really trying to get at. Because, I mean, you know, Hoover is a special place. I mean, I can tell you stories, Rob, that may or may not be appropriate for radio about, you know, drinking all these Busch Lights and eating the jambalaya and kind of cracking up a little bit on that Monday night after practice. And, you know, that's what the Southeastern Conference baseball tournament means to me. And, you know, like I said, unfortunately, I didn't get to go this year. I was very heartbroken. You can ask my wife. I was very distraught that I couldn't go. But, you know, watching the kids catch the foul balls and watch the kids have fun. That's what the Southeastern Conference is. And you move it to Globe Life or you move it to Atlanta or wherever else they want to move it. It just wouldn't have that character. I mean, you know, part of the SEC tournament is to go out in the RV lots during a rain delay and, you know, pound back several beers and have some jambalaya and, you know, some crawfish and meet lifelong friends. Rob, I've got contacts in my phone of fans, you know, of LSU fans, of Arkansas fans, Alabama fans that I met at the SEC baseball tournament that were texting me over the week saying, hey, Mitch, are you here? We're back out in, you know, our spot in the RV lot. Are you here? We'd love to have you. Bring that Kentucky bourbon you got. And, you know, that's what SEC baseball is to me. Sure, the regionals are great. Omaha, I've been to Omaha once. Omaha was a fantastic experience. Hopefully I get to go back this year with Southern Miss or Kentucky. Hopefully one of those 2 will go out there and support the Wildcats or Southern Miss. But, you know, Hoover, I asked Skip Bertman, and I talked to Skip Bertman, you know, last year on the podcast. I said, Coach, what does Hoover mean? You know, what does Hoover mean to you? He's like, you know, he took a long pause. He said, Mitch, I'm going to be honest with you. Hoover, outside of Omaha, is the best place in baseball for people that love baseball to come together as one. You know, he said, we might all support different teams. We might all coach different teams, but Hoover is a special place. Outside of winning a national championship, those programs that love baseball, you know, from anybody from Mississippi State and Ole Miss all the way down to Missouri, understand the depth and the love and the tradition and the pageantry surrounded around that Hoover Met. I mean, it's a special place. I know you've been there, Rob. You roll in off that hill, you go down into the bottom of it, and you coming in, as you're coming off the highway there, it's magnolia trees just covering. It's like kind of rolling up into Augusta National. I've never been, but that's kind of the picture I think is when you roll in and you see that hill, and underneath that hill, you know, at the bottom of the hill is the Hoover Met. There is something special about that, Rob, that, you know, it just gives you chills. I mean, Hoover is a great place, cheap hotel rooms, and it really just is truly it's a baseball town. Like it's like Omaha. It's right outside of Omaha. That the Hoover metropolitan area built themselves up around SEC baseball, just like Omaha did with the College World Series.
And I agree with you. And it's about tradition, relationships that last a lifetime, having all those games there. So people say, well, what's the point of it? We need to be getting ready for the regionals. Well, again, Major League Baseball is a 162 game schedule. Hoover might be a few more games for you. You might be out after one game. But I know last year Tennessee won it all. They lost at home in the Super Regional. And Arkansas the year before won every regular season series, all 10 of them. They won the tournament, and then they got bounced by NC State at home in their regional. And NC State then got disqualified for the dreaded virus, which was ridiculous. But bottom line, say what you want. We need Hoover. People call it an exhibition. It is a celebration of baseball. And if you don't have events like Hoover, you're not annuitizing the future of baseball. You've got to do it. Repetition's the mother of all skill. You want to be great at something, practice a lot. You want to be great at baseball, play a lot of baseball. Sure, you got to get rest, but we need Hoover.
And Rob, what's so crazy is people are saying, oh, well, the games would go by faster. We wouldn't have rain delays if it was played inside a dome. Here's the thing. If I go to a sporting event, whether it be football, basketball, or baseball, I don't want the game to go by faster. I know a lot of people are trying to shorten games with TV timeouts and running clocks on first downs in football. I don't want the game to go by faster because when I go to a sporting event, whether it be a week-long event at Hoover or whether it be a 3-4 hour game in Ole Miss, when I go to a sporting event, my wife, my family, my friends all know that, hey, that day that Mitchell is gone and he is at that game, he's gone. Like he is tailgating, he's seeing friends, he's seeing family, and the thing about it is, Rob, and I say this a lot, but I consider a lot of my friends family, like yourself.
Yeah.
When I say I'm visiting family, I'm most likely visiting friends that I've met through the Southeastern Conference. And that is what this whole thing boils down to is people want to change college sports because it's, whatever. They want to make it woke. They want to, allow the men to participate in women's sports, all these different things.
Ugh.
They don't realize that fans like us, Rob, because, you love the SEC, but you're an Auburn man. Everybody knows that Rob Browne is an Auburn man. Everybody knows I'm a Kentucky fan. It is what it is. But what makes us special in the Southeastern Conference is we have a love and a we might hate each other when we play each other. Like when Kentucky plays Tennessee, I have a lot of enemies on that other side. Now, after the game, we can joke and kid, and we'll celebrate, or we can kind of anguish and defeat. But at the end of the day, when we're playing in regionals, we're playing in the tournaments, whatever, the Southeastern Conference means more to all of us, and we want to see our neighbors do good. And that dates back, Robin, this, all the way back to the Great Depression when Alabama went out to the Rose Bowl, represented the Southeastern United States. I mean, they represented all of us, and you had Auburn people, you had Georgia people, you had Tennessee people rooting for Alabama out there in the Rose Bowl because they were representing the South. I'm not saying we're not going to talk about the Civil War, but it dates back all the way to the Civil War.
Let me just add this to you. I will, because from after the war, for that 60-year period, the South was going through hell. The emasculated male culture, it had been really, really rough. And when Alabama took that road trip to the Rose Bowl, they were the fourth or fifth team. The first four teams turned it down. They went by train, and everywhere they went, thousands of people gathered at the stops with bands playing and flags waving and just people just cheering them on. And they won that game. They were down 19-7 in the third quarter, came back and won 20-19 over Washington. It was a huge victory that they came back. They were conquering heroes when they took us. I think it was an 8-day road trip. We've yet to see a 30 for 30 on that. But what makes the South the king is that once Alabama won that Rose Bowl, the South latched on to college football, because prior to that, it had been pretty much, you had in the early 1900s, Mike Donahue at Auburn won national championships in 1910, 13, and 14. You had success, but it was Penn, Harvard, Yale, Notre Dame, those were your schools that were getting all the press because the power, the media was in the Northeast. And then once the Southern schools latched on with that Rose Bowl, they've never given back any of that real estate, that hard-earned real estate. And when they try to move Hoover to some sterile indoor stadium would be just absolutely stupid. Yeah. I don't look, when the Vikings quit playing outside, though, I remember Bud Grant and the Vikings growing up, the snowstorms, the Packers, the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field. That's what makes sports special. I don't like indoor arenas. I'm just not a fan of them. Get colleges, not one school in the SEC plays their games indoors. Now, the Georgia Dome, I understand that. That's a professional team. And they also use it for a lot of other events besides just Falcons games in the SEC championship. I get that. Multi-purpose, you got to generate revenue. It's a revenue bond, okay?
And, Rob, it used to be at Legion Field. The SEC football championship used to be at Legion Field. I'm trying to get a hold. I'm not gonna put my bluff out there, but I'm trying to get a hold of somebody that was very instrumental in moving and getting an SEC championship. And, when I get more details and get confirmation, I'll announce that interview. But working on that interview because I think it's important to tell those stories, Rob. And, I'm 26 years old, about to be 27. And, I have such a love and a passion and a respect for the Southeastern Conference. And as I've gotten older and as, now that I've moved out to Mississippi, I've realized that people up north and out west, they look down on us, Rob. I mean, I've met media members from all across the country, at various events in Omaha and wherever. People look down on the Southeast. People look down on us. But when we come out there and we go and take over their towns, whether it be in Omaha or, wherever, Santa Clara for a national championship in football, those people love us because they realize that, hey, we're not these dumb backwoods hicks that everybody likes to portray us in movies. Do we talk a little slow? Yeah. Do we like to hunt? Do we like to fish? Yes. But we're also good people. I was down in Lower Alabama, down in Dauphin Island over the weekend. And, I ran into a lot of people who were talking to me. They saw me wearing a UK shirt. I wore a Mississippi State shirt one day, stopped me and was talking about, Mississippi State football and, that they're so sorry about Mike Leach and, how they're so excited about Zach Arnett. Same thing about Kentucky. They were talking about Kentucky football and Mark Stoops and how they've enjoyed watching Nick Mingione's baseball team this year. These are Alabama and Auburn and LSU people down on the coast, nowhere near the SEC sporting events, that saw an emblem on my shirt and wanted to stop and have a conversation. That's the Southeastern Conference, and that's why we need places like the Hoover Met in the future.
No, I agree with you totally. I go down to Orange Beach a lot, stay across the street from the Floribama. When you go to the Publix or Winn-Dixie down there, there's Auburn, Alabama, LSU stuff everywhere. LSU, they really don't have beaches in Louisiana. So they come to Navarre Beach in Florida. They come over to Orange Beach, Gulf Shores and all. They're everywhere. There's so much damn fun to tailgate with on the beaches, cook out with and everything. But you're right. And I think you look at these baseball regionals. Baton Rouge is hosting. Arkansas is hosting. Auburn's hosting. Alabama's hosting. This is going to be a lot of fun. And then again, Tennessee and A&M are 2 seeds. So they'll be visiting. Tennessee's at Clemson. And A&M is going to be in Oklahoma State? Are they going to be in Stillwater?
I have the bracket pulled up.
Yeah. Because you don't want either one of those teams coming in. Mississippi, A&M, again, was picked 6th or 7th. They were picked way down.
A&M's out with Stanford, San Jose State, Cal State Fullerton, and, of course, A&M. I like A&M to win that region. I haven't seen Stanford play but once when they played Oklahoma. They're a solid team, but the competition they've been playing out west, there's only a reason why there's only like 2 or 3 out west teams in this.
Well, Oregon State and Oregon made it. Arizona made it. But no, I was going to say, I think Stanford had an RPI ranking last week of number 3. They had not beaten a ranked team all season. Now, you go back and you look at the history of college baseball, Rod ditto. Southern Cal won 11 or 12 national championships. UCLA, Arizona State, Arizona. I mean, it's really sad what's happened to the Pac-12. It really is. And I
don't know
think
if it's
they're
sad, Rob, or if it's actually karma, because the Pac-12 was one of the leading people who said that they weren't going to play during COVID. They robbed their student athletes of opportunities that fall. I mean, that
Yeah.
I don't think it's sad. I think it's kind of funny, actually.
Well, let me say, and I think about the overall history going back in time. But I was going to say, I agree with you. What they did in 2020 during the virus was draconian, okay? And karma is biting them on the butt. They are paying for it, and they sent a message to student athletes that they don't have their back. I don't want to hear all their Pollyanna, sanctimonious preaching, okay? And as far as people around the country looking down on the Southern schools, it's envy and it's jealousy, okay? Nobody. You don't see people in the South moving to the Northeast or moving up to Chicago and Detroit and Cleveland, okay? If it's so bad, why do they all want to be here? Just leave your politics behind, though. Don't. I've got a T-shirt. I got it at Hewlett and Dunn. I love it. Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee, and it says, "Don't California my Tennessee."
I like that.
They've also got one that says, "Don't California my Mississippi."
Well, see, and that's the thing is, when you look at Texas and Oklahoma joining our conference,
yeah,
that's
a good fit.
It's a good fit, but I don't want to cater to Texas. Catering to Texas is a bad thing. The Big 12 has done it for years. For years, Texas has been the caveat of the Big 12. When they get over to the SEC, Texas is not Texas. Like, we don't really care about the history of Texas because they're not. It's going to take a while for us to get used to Texas, and we're still not used to Missouri. All right, Missouri still doesn't belong in the SEC, but that's a different story for a different day. Texas is going to have to get used to people throwing the horns down. They're going to have to get used to people being rough on them because I guarantee you when they go to Baton Rouge at night, when they go to Tuscaloosa, which they're going to do this year, they go to Baton Rouge, they go to Tuscaloosa, they go to the Vaught Hemingway, Davis Wade Stadium. These people are going to be ruthless on Texas. I mean, a lot of great friends and families all across the Southeast, but when you get Texas and you get their soft little woke self in here, they get offended with this.
Yeah, why in the world, man, if they can't handle that, trust me, man, you better toughen up real fast.
They're going to have Death Valley singing the deck,
Oh, God. They're good. Listen, I've been to Texas games out there before. Oklahoma's another tradition-rich program that's coming into the conference. Texas basically blew up the Big 12. They drove Colorado out. They drove Nebraska out because they had the Longhorn Network. And that's not a conference when you have one school doing that. Now, the SEC, you look at Alabama, look at Georgia right now, on top of the world. Look at the schools that have won national championships, Auburn, LSU, Florida, Tennessee. But they're all for the conference. And you look at the ACC. Now, it's reported that Florida State's athletic director and Clemson have been saying, hey, we're carrying too much of the burden for the ACC in football. We want a bigger share. When you start talking like that, the same thing's going to happen to you that happened in the Southwest Conference and that ultimately blew up the Big 12 and drove schools out. Nebraska should have stayed in the Big 12, but they couldn't stand Texas's influence. Missouri probably would have been better in the Big 10. They're in the SEC. I think Missouri has got to learn to spend money. And you look at the Vanderbilt. I mean, they're there in baseball. Basketball, usually they're pretty good. The women have won a couple of national championships in bowling. Okay. But football-wise, they are just lucky. I mean, Tony Franklin or James Franklin, what he did there in 12 and 13, whatever, was incredible. But, they're not – hey, Northwestern's good most every year under Pat Fitzgerald. Stanford was good, but David Shaw is just they're sinking. But I think what's going on in the SEC, it does mean more, and people spend their money on it. 14% of the fans in California, sports fans, identify as college football fans or college sports fans. That's a problem. See, that's the problem. And DirecTV couldn't work out a deal with DirecTV in the LA TV market to carry the Pac-12 network. That is what you call a cluster fudge.
Could you imagine that happening in the Southeastern Conference? I mean, my God, if we didn't get the
There'd be riots.
I mean, I would be willing to bet. I don't know if there's any stats out there, but I'd be willing to bet that 99.999% of the South is college football fans. I'd be willing to, and probably about 98% of those are college baseball fans. Just gonna throw that out there.
Yeah, college baseball's popularity is making Major League Baseball's future brighter. Yeah. Because you follow these guys through their college careers, then they get into they'll go to the minors, but they're going to spend less time in the minor leagues because of the 3 or 4 years they spent in college. And because of the virus, I think some of these guys are just never going to graduate.
Well, look at Ben Joyce, who graduated Tennessee last year for the starting pitcher who threw over 100. Last night, he made his major league debut after being in the minor leagues for maybe a month or two. Made his major league debut for the Anaheim Angels. I don't know exactly how he did, but I know he made his major league debut last night with the Anaheim Angels after spending 5 seasons at the University of Tennessee.
Yeah. So that time you get in college, you're also saving, you've got more in your tank. You spend 7 or 8 years in the minors, then get to the majors. I mean, that's a tough road. I think Major League Baseball, again, there are 48 fewer teams out there, farm teams, than there were. And then you look at, you talk about the Cotton States Baseball League. Well, golly, instead of having to go up to Cape Cod for the summer, and I can assure you this, that the cost of living in Cape Cod and Hyannisport and Martha's Vineyard is not cheap. So I think if you can live down here in the South and play right where, well, look, you look at these rosters, I mean, the players are coming from everywhere. I mean, it's a national reach, but a Southern Development League, which will kick off, I guess, Mitch, after the College World Series is over, is a good thing.
Opening day, Friday night, 6 o'clock. I'm going to be out there. We're going to have 2 games going on at once on Friday. I think Saturday 6, and then Sunday I think we're playing at like 3 or 4 o'clock on Sunday. I'll be out there. It's at B&A Park there in New Albany. You go to Cotton States Baseball League to purchase tickets. A lot of great talent. I'm going to be out there producing podcasts and broadcasting some, doing articles, and doing some featured pieces on some of these players and coaches that have been around the Cotton States Baseball League for a while now.
Well, I like the league. And I've got a comment from a listener who says it's kind of an economy version of the Cape Cod League. Well, exactly. You know, if a player can stay down here in the South, and trust me, there's tremendous interest on the part of the fans to see these guys play. Think about what are the locations where they're going to play? Have they announced the cities yet?
So we're only going to be playing in New Albany, Mississippi, but it's so centrally located. I mean, people from Starkville, people from Oxford, people from Memphis, people from, as far as away as Jackson, Mississippi can come up. And, Rob, this is our 15th year in a running to have a consecutive baseball league. So I think that sets a record for the Cotton States Baseball League is what I've been told. And like I said, I'm going to be out there running media relations. So if there are any media members or any fans that want to come out, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. And I'm there and I'm excited, man. This is going to be a real fun summer for me. And, I did tell them, though, I said, look, if Southern Miss or Kentucky makes it out to the College World Series, I'm going to have to go out there for 2 or 3 days because I went last year with Ole Miss. And, of course, if Kentucky makes it, that's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Yeah. I just can't pass up. So
I know you can't. Yeah, Mitch, we just got a couple more minutes. I know you got to go, and then we're going to take a break. But I love this discussion about a baseball league in the South because, again, we need baseball to be strong. When baseball, the 162 games of the Major League season It's a lot for people to keep up with. Okay. Now, I know so many baseball fans, Cardinals and Braves fans, especially in our footprint that Sidelines reaches. And they watch every game. It's almost like white noise, background noise. They're with it on having on music, in the background. But it's well worth it. Mitch, tell people how they can follow you, and we'll do it again next week. Love having you back on. I've realized you're available on weekdays again, and I was like last week, but tell them how they can follow you.
Now, Rob, I'm working from home now with Republic Finance. They've blessed me with an opportunity to work from home, and I love it. I love working from the office. But themitchdavisshow.com, and that's where the podcast is, where all the articles are. And then also check out CottonStatesBaseballLeague.com. I'm going to have some content up there, probably starting on Friday or Saturday, and Mitch_8 on Twitter.
We're doing it. Great job, as always. We'll be right back. Rodney Orr, Tighter Insider. All right, Rob Browne back here with you. Great stuff with Mitch Davis, host of the MitchDavisShow.com. And want to say something about one of our sponsors, Tom Martin's Body Shop, G.E. Patterson and B.B. King, downtown Memphis. 60 years they've been in the business. And I have known Tom for 28 years now. I met him when he was training for, I think, the Boston Marathon. He's there early every morning, has an incredible crew. If you call Tom Martin's Body Shop, you tell them you've got a car, you've been in a wreck, someone broke your windows out. If you live in Memphis, likely that's going to happen. They will get on it immediately. I mean, he is accessible. His office crew with the insurance and all the paperwork, they make it a lot less of an issue. You will be so glad and you'll be so satisfied and happy with the work. Tom Martin's Body Shop, damn proud to have them a sponsor of Sidelines. Also, rumbleboxinggym.com. We had Ann Camp-Lee on the show last Thursday. A lot going on there. You want to get a great work out with some incredible people, make great business contacts, relationships with a lot of type A personalities. They got one person in there they've been open. She's been there for 25 of the 30 days working out. The workouts are 45 minutes long. That's the same time as a prize fight, 15 3-minute rounds. You're doing calisthenics, push-ups, dips, planks, dumbbells. Then you get on the punching bags. Hook, gut, jab. It is an incredible workout. When you get through, you'll love it. 1835 Union Avenue, Union and McLean, right across from Walgreens in Midtown Memphis. This is the first of 3 locations that Ann Camp-Lee will be opening. Okay, so rumbleboxinggym.com. College baseball, how much more popular will it get? Well, it's going to get a lot more popular because, again, we know that there's NIL and all that stuff going on out there with it, but it's not like football where you're not having to hear about it all the time. And I'm so glad that we just finished up Hoover, and we need Hoover. We need college baseball. We need any event where we get college fans together in the South, eating and drinking and having fun and telling stories is a good thing. Let's head over to Tuscaloosa. Tighter Insider, Rodney Orr. Also, tonight at 6:30, you'll be on. And like you say, it's like reaching in a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. He and Gary Harris tonight, WVUA TV Channel 23 in Tuscaloosa. Check them out live on YouTube and other ways you can hear and watch this awesome program. Rodney Orr, Tyler Insider. Never, ever is there a dull moment. The spring meetings are starting up down in Destin, one of my favorite places. They'll be talking about a lot of things. Among them, the 1-7 or the 3-6 model. What are we going to do? How much of an influence is ESPN? Obviously, quite a bit going to have. But what are you in favor of in terms of scheduling once Oklahoma and Texas come in the league?
Look, it really doesn't matter to me, Rob. I mean, the way I look at it is I don't have any control over it, so I really don't concern myself too much with it. It is what it is, and whatever they decide, all I know is I'm going to be excited to watch the games.
Well, I'm with you, and bottom line, a conference is stronger when you have more play. I think this year is going to be the first time ever. I think Georgia goes to Texas A&M. They've never been there, and A&M's been in the league since 2012. I know some things got mixed up in 2020, the year of the mixed-up schedule due to the virus, the dreaded virus. But bottom line is you got to go and you got to play who you got to play. Rodney, what's going on in Tuscaloosa in terms of recruiting? Portal is probably kind of quiet right now, but players have reported for the summer workouts. And what kind of news are you hearing from over at the football complex?
Well, they just arrived this weekend. Most of the players, I'm not sure if everyone's back yet or not, or if everyone is in. I know that, obviously they were welcoming the rest of that recruiting class that they had. There was only a few. Keon Keeley, 5-star defensive end outside linebacker, who I understand is going to wear number 31, by the way. He and Will Anderson became really close during the recruiting process. So Keon Keeley apparently is going to wear number 31 to kind of keep that tradition going, I guess. And then Johannes Pierre is another 5-star outside linebacker that's expected in right now. And then Connor Talty is the place kicker from Chicago, St. Rita's High School. He's coming in. Of course, he was expected to be the guy this year, and then Will Reichert announced he's coming back. So Talty have an opportunity to kind of learn some things, get settled in with Reichert. And then all of us, you also have Tyler Buckner. I think that's the one that a lot of people are talking about because, he could be Alabama's starting quarterback. So, Buckner coming in, transfer from Notre Dame. I think that's something that everybody's really excited to kind of get some feedback from how 7-on-7, once it starts in a week or so, or whenever they decide to crank that up. What's kind of the feedback? What's the reception of Tyler Buckner with the teammates? I expect it to be really, really good.
Rodney, this Alabama football team, everybody's concerned about the quarterback thing. I've watched a lot of video. I've been watching Tyler Buckner, everything I can find on him. He's a pretty damn good athlete. We know Jalen Milroe can run. Ty Simpson came in as a 5-star quarterback out of Martin, Tennessee. So there's no shortage of talent. It's just finding the right combination. As you're breaking in that new quarterback, Bryce Young was absolutely just one of the best college football players I have ever seen. He won the Heisman Trophy, and last year he kept Alabama going. There were some close games where his athletic ability and his leadership carried him across the finish line. I'm looking this year and talking with Alabama friends of mine and yours and all, the defensive line, the defense overall with Kevin Steele. Again, Pete Golding was what he was. He's at Ole Miss now. He's gone. Alabama is at their best, at least in my opinion, when they've got those big dudes on the defensive line, the front seven, because it all starts up front. Would you agree?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think it is. I think it does. I think when you look at offensively what they're doing now with Eric Wolford, the offensive line coach in his second year, I think Alabama with you mentioned the quarterback situation at the top of that. And, I think that what the benefit the quarterback on this team should have is that I think he's going to have a great nucleus of good players around him. And I think that's going to make it, hopefully from Alabama's perspective, it'll make it a little bit easier on the quarterback. I think the offensive line should be stronger. I think the receiving core overall should be better. I think the running back room is pretty good. So I think the quarterback's going to have a lot of things, tight ends, and all of the things that will probably make his job a little easier. So from that perspective, he doesn't have to be Bryce Young. Defensively, you talk about the line of scrimmage. I think, with the way they're going to do things offensively, they want to get back to being a physical team up front, being able to run the ball when they need to, run it more effectively when they want to, all of those things that they want to do offensively. I think that's going to create a toughness up front on both sides of the ball. And I think the defensive line is an area where, as you look at the defense, I think that's an area that people are, just to be frank with you, are saying, is Alabama going to play with some consistency up front in the trenches? Are they going to play? Are they going to have technique? Are they going to be a team that's really disciplined, not get out of position? And I think too, Rob, a lot of times when they've played some physical teams, the defensive front hasn't been consistent. I mean, you go back to the 2021 national championship game when Georgia really started running the ball in the second half. I don't think that was a disciplined front. So I think those are the things that people are asking about this defensive line. But overall, I think Kevin Steele, I just think the energy, the enthusiasm that he's going to bring is going to be something that I think is going to be really good to watch.
I'd agree with you. Speaking of the big dogs on the front line, this Tighter Insider Report with Rodney Orr is sponsored by May Veterinary Clinic, founded by Dr. Wayne May in 1964, Tuscaloosa and Northport. Both locations open every day, but on Sundays, Camp May, where you can take your dogs and cats, where they have the connecting cat condos. You got cats that live together, they can play together. They have an outdoor pool. It is drop off and pick up only Sundays from 3 to 5 p.m. May Veterinary Clinic, the best veterinary care anywhere. They have a great staff at both locations. Again, Tuscaloosa and Northport. Waller, Guy May, the whole team. I know people that bring their dogs and cats there from all over, like Peter Riley down in Tyler, Alabama. He's probably sitting on his front porch on the veranda right now with the Spanish moss flowing, listening to us on Sidelines. Rodney, the defensive front and the offensive front, I remember so well. My friend John Turner said this to me one time. He said, look, you try to get that soft football, you're going to miss out on, as Coach Stallings said, the big guys butting heads against each other day in and day out. And they just get mean and they develop a nasty disposition and personality doing that. And I think if I'm trying to break in a new quarterback and I've got a guy like Kevin Steele there, I'm going to jump all over it. I think everybody gets caught up in scoring, trying to outscore people like they do in the Big 12. How'd that work out for TCU against Georgia? You can't do that forever.
Yeah, I think you have to be balanced. There's no doubt. I think Alabama lost some of that after 2020, after the national championship team that year. And, they kind of became more quarterback reliant. I don't think they were as good up front offensively the last couple of years. Obviously, I think after Najee Harris left, and Brian Robinson was hampered with some injuries, and maybe they didn't run the ball as effectively as they would have liked, or as much. Maybe they became so reliant on Bryce Young. I think that's the key this year. I think they went into spring practice this year that they wanted to get back to developing that relentless mentality that they used to play with, and I think that's the hope of it. We can say all these things, but until the games start and until the team starts to develop, you really don't know, are they going to be what we kind of expect them to be? So we'll see, but I think it's going to be real interesting. And I think if you're asking me now, I think the offensive line should be vastly improved, and I'm really excited to see kind of how they are defensively in terms of, just their effort. and being able to rush the passer. I think that's going to be a real key is rushing the passer, Rob, because I think when you get into that second game against Texas and Sark, I think, with Quinn Ewers back, they've got an incredible core of wide receivers. They're young. They've got an offensive line that's should be a year older. They played a lot of young players last year up front. So I think that the pass rush is going to be something that I'm really going to watch as well.
Yeah, and then you look in Texas is used to having in the Big 12, the only real defense they play is off the edges because people don't have the interior defensive linemen, and that should help them in recruiting now to be able to say, hey, come to the SEC where you're in a totally different league, and if you're a defensive lineman, you can be a high draft pick. I look at Alabama last year, those close games, and you made a very good point. I totally agree with you. They become too quarterback reliant. And that is the quarterback goes, the team goes. And I look at Alabama this year. What about that second year under Nick Saban with John Parker Wilson? In 2007, they were 7-6. He was a good quarterback, not a great quarterback, but he led them to a 12-0 season, regular season before they lost to Florida. This team, you don't even know who the quarterback's going to be. And I wouldn't even ask you to guess who it's going to be, but talk about the strengths and weaknesses of Ty Simpson, Jalen Milroe, and what you have learned about Tyler Buchner to this point.
Well, okay, you said Ty Simpson first, so we'll start there. I think Ty has all the tools. I really do. I think he's got a really strong arm. I think he's a smart kid. I think he can run. He's athletic. He can avoid the rush, but he keeps his eyes down the field. Thing that really impressed me in the A-Day game was watching him from the press box. You could see his head moving in terms of going through his progressions. I think he does that really, really well, or he's getting, better at it. Ty Simpson a lot. My only question about Ty is this, and it has nothing to do with him other than, it's where is he in terms of his development? Is he ready to be the guy? I think that's the question. Mac Jones wasn't ready at this stage.
Yeah.
Again, everybody develops and is ready at a certain time. It's not always the same with every guy. So I think that's the question with Ty is he ready? Is he going to be ready come August to take the bull by the horns? As far as Milroe's concerned, Milroe's an incredible athlete. There's no doubt about that. I mean, he's very dangerous running the ball. People talk about that and how Alabama could utilize that. And certainly they could. But, they have an offensive system they want to run, and it's going to require distributing the football. They may not throw it as many times, with this particular offense, because you don't have Bryce Young. But at the same time, it's going to be required. You're going to have games where you're going to throw it a lot more, maybe, but you're always going to have to be able to distribute the ball. And I think that the thing with Milroe is just consistency. Managing the offense, getting them in the right play. Making sure all the calls are made at the line of scrimmage. All of the different things is I think that's key for him. But a big thing is can he consistently distribute the ball to the right receiver? And then as far as Buchner's concerned, I think Tyler Buchner, he's a real interesting guy. He's very, very mature. He's very smart. People act like that he really is just a throw-in type player. That's not accurate. When he came out of high school, he was extremely highly recruited. He had some things in high school that prevented him probably from, for example, in 2020, they canceled the season out there in California till the spring, because of the COVID. But with all that said, he's a very gifted runner. He's very quick. He's elusive. He's dynamic when he runs. He's not as fast as Milroe, but he's got his own way. He's very elusive. I think he's got a really strong arm. He's got a snap quick delivery. I just think the injuries at Notre Dame slowed down his progress. If you ask me to kind of just throw something out there as a guess, I would say, if he can make a quick adjustment when he's here, he and Tommy Rees are really close. He spent a lot of time up in that press box at Notre Dame when he was injured, sitting next to Tommy Rees while Rees was calling plays. There's a reason why they went and got Tyler Buckner. So
Yeah.
I would say, Rob, I would think that Buckner has a really, really good chance to start. But again, everything's going to play out in August camp. And anything I say about that in terms of him potentially starting, not taking away from the other two guys. Like I said, I think Ty Simpson has all the tools. It's a matter of when. As far as Milroe's concerned, if he can clean up those things in the passing game, become more consistent, he's got all the tools. So we'll just see how it all unfolds.
Yeah, and it's going to be fun to watch, but that's great insight. Rodney, tell them how they can follow you. And let me say, we most often see the face of Christ in the least among us, and we live in the greatest country in the history of the world. That's what Memorial Day is all about. Thank those who put themselves out there on the line for us. Again, we are blessed beyond belief. How they can follow you, and let's do it again next week on the May Veterinary Clinic Tighter Insider Report.
Well, it's tighterinsider.com. It's only $48 a year, and you could get instant access with your credit card if you prefer. There is an address there to send a check, but that gives you all our premium information. We had a quick recruiting update this morning. The guys that are scheduled to come in this weekend. It's going to be a busy month. And then also our All Sports Forum. That's our community of Alabama fans where I can tell you, Rob, it never stops, whether it's softball, baseball, basketball, of course, Alabama football, recruiting, whatever it is, it never stops on tighterinsider.com. They're on our All Sports Forum.
Yeah, it really never does, and we are glad it doesn't. Rodney Orr, thanks so much for your time. Everybody have a great day. We are out of here. Got a great show. We'll be back on tomorrow morning. Until then, have a great one. We're out.